It
All right,
is.
and the broadcast is live. Oh yeah. We're starting only 11 minutes late.
Instead of our usual half hour.
Yeah. All right, this is episode 86 of Future Chat. I am joined, as always, by Mike and Nick, and we're going to talk some science and tech. This is, at least from my perspective, this is a very space-heavy week. There was just a bunch of space news. Uh,
Space.
but before we get to that, Mike, why don't you tell us some of the stuff you have to follow up on from past weeks?
So brace yourselves because there's a lot. I'll try not to linger too much on each story, but I
I'm
thought
bracing myself.
I thought a lot of these were worth bringing up because they were actually fairly major developments, I guess. So I'll just kind of go from top to bottom, I guess, just to keep it things straightforward. So a long time ago, we talked about Pengate and how the Samsung Galaxy Note 5 phone had the S Pen that, if inserted the incorrect way, as in butt first, it would get lodged inside the thing, inside the little canister, I guess, or alleyway for it, and wouldn't be able to pull it out, and then you'd ruin your phone, at least that aspect of it. So now I guess they've made a statement saying they've updated the internals and the mechanism so that you don't have that same issue that's caused by inserting the S Pen incorrectly. There aren't any details as far as what was changed or in what way they changed it. They still say, as always, we recommend following proper instructions for the S Pen. So,
Yeah, I have a bit of color to add to this, possibly.
okay.
I think iFixit or something did a teardown. Someone did a teardown and looked at the different mechanisms.
Of the
And
new one.
basically, yeah, you can
Okay.
still do it. You can still put it in backwards, but now
Okay.
it will pop back out.
Okay.
And whereas before it would just get stuck, so they changed one of the little clip mechanism at the very end that latches and
Yeah.
made it reversible.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I can
See,
try to find that and put a link
yeah,
to it.
yeah. Let's do that because I
Yeah.
was wondering how they you just that actually makes sense. I thought they might just prevent it from going all the way in somehow so that it wouldn't actually, but that makes sense having the reversible latch system. Um, but this is kind of one of those issues you have, whether it's mechanical design or coding design or that kind of thing, or program design, where you're kind of trying to cater to not the lowest common denominator, but what most people will treat your program or device. Like you can't stupid proof it, but you have to say, okay, this is good enough for the amount of people that are going to be using it and the issues they might have. And I think this was one of those things where it's like, no one's going to put the pen in the wrong way. That's not going to happen. And sure enough, they did, and it caused an issue. So they
If you
kind of
make something that's idiot-proof, someone else invents a better idiot.
that's that's very true.
It
Or a better
absolutely
idiot
is.
will come along. I don't know inventing one, but you'll at least run into a better idiot.
You get what I'm going for.
Yeah. So yeah, that's good news, I guess, for those idiots out there using the Note 5 that
Yeah.
they can put their pen in the wrong way without issue. So, um, yeah, and then the next story that I have here is it was actually more recently. I think it was last week we kind of touched on cell carriers and how kind of their distribution of towers might need to be changed or improved if we're kind of going to get widespread coverage, kind of like we were talking about the daisy-chained kind of networks.
Right.
So Dan Bader, global syrup fame, Canadian tastemaker,
So famous.
he was on CBC recently. Actually, I'm pretty impressed.
Yeah,
It was
he goes on CBC all the time.
yeah. He wrote a story on how, and I don't think this is new, but it's kind of FYI. You might not know this already. How cell carriers are actually putting in smaller cellular cells. I guess they're not towers, but they're almost like the same way that Wi-Fi signal. You can use kind of amplifiers or I don't know how you
Range
call it.
boosters?
Range boosters, I guess, is probably a
Mhm.
better way to say it. But they have them for the cell signal that you can put inside, either inside buildings or just in specific places on the outside that kind of are just out of reach of cell signal, but there's enough people there that it's worth kind of putting a mini kind of booster there so that they
Mhm.
can all get a good enough signal. So he even touched on the fact that this is kind of how 5G networks will probably be designed, is kind of just a network of these cells to kind of get signal wherever you need it to. And it's also the same kind of system that the other 5G technology we looked at a long, long time ago, where it used the interference patterns of the cell signals to carry the signal.
Right.
It used little cells distributed in different places. You'd have, 3 or 4 of them within, a mall, versus relying on one single tower to give you your signal. So, yeah, we'll kind of put a link there just as an FYI, but just kind of as a follow-up reading, I guess.
The fact that they're now doing
Yeah,
it.
that they're already doing it. Because I think we've all had the issue where you have a perfectly fine signal, you walk into a mall and it's gone. And it's like, ugh. And so these kind of things you can put inside a mall to pick up a signal and redistribute it throughout the mall. So
yeah,
it's kind of cool. I have some Hyperloop news. They've broken ground on a test track, but it's actually the start of a main track for this concept city they're building. Kind of like was it a Google city that we were talking about? Or I think it was Google Y? Google Y we were talking about.
The big mega projects.
Yeah, so this is kind of like a Google Y type project. It's not from Google, but it's another company. I don't have the company offhand right now.
Hyperloop Transportation Technologies.
Okay, yeah, so they bought some land and they're going to build a concept city, solar powered apparently, and the Hyperloop is going to be its main form of transportation. That, I guess, is going to get you from one end of the city to the other in 80 seconds, which is awesome.
Yeah,
that'd be really cool. So yeah, they've broken ground on that. So they'll stay tuned for working Hyperloop prototype.
Yeah.
And then there's some net neutrality news here. So Netflix has started blocking VPN use in Australia, and we've been blocked from using it in our own home, at least on our account. So
really,
yeah, when we were using the service and then it wasn't working, it was giving errors on the Netflix servers, and then as soon as we switched the VPN to Canadian, it worked fine. So we kind of figured that was the issue. We've had issues with the smart TV's connection to the servers in the past, but it's almost too coincidental that it started working as soon as we switched it to the Canadian region. So, and we've actually found that the Netflix content has improved quite a bit the past couple of years, the Canadian one. So you almost don't even need the region change anymore. Like, they have enough shows that we're finding we're not even needing to switch back and forth that often.
Okay.
And Show Me and Crave, they all have kind of network shows already that Netflix doesn't carry. So I think between one of those services and Netflix, you should be fine, even if it's just the Canadian content that you get. So but this is kind of just more of a sign of a change that VPNs, as they're designed now, aren't going to be working with Netflix anymore.
Right. Do Crave and Show Me, do they get the new release shows right away or within a day or something, or do you still have to wait?
So Show Me, they're, I believe, 24 hours or so behind. Okay. So we watched the show Jane the Virgin. I don't know if you guys have seen that show. It's a pretty good show. I'd recommend watching it if you can get into it. They'll usually release the show about 24 to 48 hours after it's originally aired.
Yeah, okay.
So, which is fine. Like, we'd probably have that same wait time if we DVR'd it anyway, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, so that's where that's at. And last news in net neutrality is a while ago, about a year ago, Bell was analyzed by the CRTC for their service of distributing their mobile TV experience to their customers, but not charging it against their data cap. And they were found. The CRTC, was saying, hey, you guys can't do this. This is violating, kind of net neutrality type rules that are in place where you need to treat all the different content the same way. And Bell came back saying, well, since we distribute it through TV already, like, they're the content provider, I guess, not just the distributor, that they should be able to distribute to their mobile users the same way that they distribute to TV.
Right.
So I guess the CRTC said, okay, fine, we'll listen to what you have to say here. You kind of got somewhat of a point, so we'll see if that holds up in court or under just further analysis kind of thing. But I think Bell's kind of trying to, like, game the system a little bit, or take advantage, because
Yeah.
not every content provider is also a broadcast service.
Hmm.
So it's one of those things that you kind of have to work out the rules as they come up. I think that there aren't a lot of rules in place right now, so you almost have to make them as you need to. And this might be one of those things where they're either saying, yeah, broadcasters, say CBC, could do the same thing if CBC had a mobile network as well,
Right.
which they obviously don't. But if they did, then you could distribute your content the same way and not have a count against your mobile users' data caps.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see where it goes, but it's kind of more of an update saying that what happened a year ago is now going to get appealed and reviewed a second time to figure out if there's going to be changes to the rules in the system.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I would hope that there would be changes to the rules, because this is kind of a whole new thing. Rogers and Bell are going to try to do something new and different,
Yeah.
and the old rules aren't going to apply. You have to
Yeah.
come up with new ones that
Yeah.
fit everyone.
Well, the issue that was there before was the over-the-top services like Show Me and Crave, and the CRTC said, no, you can't only offer that to your customers. You have to allow other people to buy into it too, regardless of, they're fine for price discrimination. So Show Me and Crave, I believe, both have different price tiers for their actual subscribers and people not subscribed to their services.
Right.
I think there's about a $2 per month difference. But either way, you're still allowed to get that service if you want to.
Okay.
So I think Bell and Rogers. I don't know, whoever. So
Crave is TELUS, I believe.
Yeah. So TELUS and Rogers came back and said, hey, hold up. Bell has their NHL service, like Game Center or whatever you want to call it. I can't remember what's the specific one.
NHL Game Center Live?
Yeah, so they have Game Center Live. Is like, that's not offered to everyone. Why are they allowed to do that? And they're saying that because that's an innovative service that's not just redistributing content, they're allowed to only offer to their subscribers.
Well, no, because NHL Game Center Live, you can get it. It's just $150 a season. Or like $20 a month or $30 a month or something. Maybe that was the case, and that's why they decided to change it.
Maybe.
But right now you can get it separately too.
There's one service, maybe you know what it was? I think it was specific aspects of Game Center. I can't remember. Maybe it could have changed since then. We can look into it, but there's a specific experience where it's kind of like a more up close view or additional footage or highlights or that. I can't remember the specifics of what it was, but there's a specific aspect to the service that wasn't being offered to everyone else, that only the subscribers to their other TV service got. And the CRT said, well, that's innovative, that's original content, they're okay doing that. They're not just offering content that would be there anyway, kind of thing.
Right.
So these are the kind of rules that come up as needed, and it's like you kind of got to make that judgment call.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a couple pieces of space follow-up. Of course, I couldn't. This wouldn't be Future Chat if we didn't talk about what happened. Of course, we teased it last week because we were recording right before the Falcon 9 was due to do its latest test launch, and they were going to try again to land on their barge, but this time, rather than doing it in the Atlantic Ocean, they were doing it in the Pacific Ocean. And so, yeah, I'm sure everyone who's listening to this was watching intently, like I was, on YouTube and on Twitter. I'm sure everyone.
That's not true.
I was reading your live tweets.
Yeah. So basically, the thing landed, and right on the barge, right in the center. And then, I don't know, Mike, I'm sure you have experience with this. Nick, I don't know if you do, but you know how when you have like a stroller and you
Do I have experience with falling down?
Well, that too. When you unfold the stroller, you have to clip the legs into place so they don't fold back up.
Yeah.
One of the legs on the rocket, as it was landing, did not quite clip into place, and so it just tipped. And once it started tipping, that leg buckled, and then the whole thing just exploded.
To say the least.
Yeah. So it really did. If you watch the video,
Wait, there's a cool explosion to see?
There's a whole explosion.
Oh, man.
So
Maybe I will
landed.
watch this.
It landed. The engine powered off. It was on the ground vertical for like 3 seconds and then slowly just tipped. Their leg was buckling and then it just hit the ground and then went boom. It was really cool. And actually, if you watch the video, or if you watch, there was a video that I saw of them bringing the barge back to land, and most of the bottom part of the rocket is actually totally fine. Like it really just tipped over, but the actual main rocket part is just exploded. And so I'm gonna consider that like they stuck the landing, but then just tipped over afterwards. So I don't know. That was like an 8.5, and then
I
complete
don't
failure
know,
on
because
final
like
points.
there was the one gymnast who broke her leg during the
Yeah,
routine and
yeah,
then landed on it and managed to stick it.
yeah.
So like it can be done.
No excuses.
It can be
But
done.
yeah, they
You
were
just
saying
need the human element, that human endurance. You can't get that with
Yeah.
robots.
no, you can't.
I think they should talk to Graco because they have, like you said, they have experience having those little clippy
Oh
mechanisms.
yeah,
So
absolutely,
I think just do a little collaboration there. Next
definitely.
next one, Falcon 9 launch presented by Graco.
Now, I was gonna say I have a little bit of empathy for Falcon 9 because this week I'd been sitting on the computer for like with my legs crossed or something like that a little too
Mhm.
long. I got up and started walking and was like, "Oh, my entire leg is asleep. That's odd. Whatever." And carried on. I went, "Uh-oh, this isn't okay," and just ended up tipping over. Much like Falcon 9.
But you didn't
Thankfully, you
Well,
did not
explode.
explode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
no, I didn't explode. I mean, I'm here, so.
Oh,
Uh,
that's good.
I was gonna say there was also a Reddit GIF that I couldn't find with cursory Googling just now. Um, it said, could this be the ideal solution for Falcon 9? Just like Falcon 9 lands, and then some guides come up, and wires on all four sides just
Mm.
quickly cinch in to hold it up. Maybe that could be the answer.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, yeah, they landed on land. The ocean part makes it hard, and also they were saying that weather was a contributing factor, or was probably a contributing factor because it was insanely foggy the entire day, and so humidity may have built up on the legs. As it was going through launch, it may have gathered more moisture and then it got into the edge of space. It's very possible that it would have just frozen over, very much like the first Iron Man. And so very much like Elon Musk is very much a modern day Iron Man, or at least a real Iron Man. They will probably address this in the next edition of Falcon 9, and all of this will be fine. You'll have
The
proper
fact that
de-
he's Iron Man?
Sorry?
They'll address the fact that Elon Musk is Iron Man?
No, in the first Iron Man movie, in the climax, spoilers here.
He could
He
have a press conference the same way Tony
he
Stark did.
he absolutely could. But yeah, so if they can figure out a way to get this de-iced, or just have launches not take place through fog, or be aware of this possibly being an issue in foggy weather, then they could do this. But that being said, the whole mission, they kept going through this. That I watched the whole like hour long live stream type thing. The whole point of the mission was to get the satellite, this weather oceanography satellite, into orbit, and they did that. It was perfect, and so the landing was an accessory thing, and it is like they kept describing it as an experiment, and that really just made me happy that seeing that this is science. It's not. It's kind of like where pop culture and science meet, where you have to realize that this is just they're showing everything to us, even though it's not done. Normally, you would see something they would do a bunch of test flights in secret, get it working, and then show you. But here,
Yeah.
they have NASA contracts, so they have to be publicly accountable. And on that note, on the same kind of story here, I don't know if you guys heard, but I think it was just today or like yesterday, Blue Origin relaunched their
Yeah.
rocket and landed it again. Just again, it was the same thing we talked about in past weeks, where they literally just shot it up to the very technically edge of space, like 100 kilometers, released their little capsule, and then came back down and landed it on ground. So they, I guess if you really want to get technical, they were the first people to do a relaunch of a rocket and then catch the first stage.
Oh, it
But
was the same one. It
yeah,
was the same.
the
Oh,
same
okay.
rocket.
Gotcha.
And SpaceX could have done that, but they chose to keep their first one. So again, it's a little battle between Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, but I'm still rooting for Elon to win in the end because obviously they have the contracts. I actually heard that in this conference they were talking about how the fact that the only reason they landed on the barge is because it takes special permits to land at like either Cape Canaveral or Johnson Space Center, wherever they were trying to land. It takes special permits and takes a lot of time to get those, and so they're trying to get those again for later missions. But the barge enables them to just kind of shoot and go.
Yeah.
And so they didn't have time to get the clearance for this January one where they needed the satellite to get into orbit. And so that's why they had to do it on the barge. But their goal is to be able to do it from land because the barge just adds an extra variable where you have to deal with the ocean. The ocean was terrible on the day they were trying to launch it. It was like they were saying it was like 15-foot waves. It's just like such an unideal situation to land a rocket on it.
It's the kind of thing where if you can do it on a barge, you can do it on land. Like so, it shouldn't really be a huge deal.
All that really reminds me of is the quote from Dodgeball, where if you
I was
can
just
dodge a
thinking
ball, you can dodge a wrench. Or,
No, you can dodge a wrench, you can
works.
dodge a ball. Yeah. No, I was thinking that as I was saying that quote, but I couldn't remember what movie it was from.
Yeah. But so they'll get it, and there are lots more missions coming up, and eventually they will eventually they will nail the landing, and eventually they'll get people on board, and everything will be amazing.
Yeah.
Go Elon. And I am Team Elon in case that wasn't clear.
No, you mentioned it earlier. It was clear.
Okay. The last story I have here, Nick, even Phil Plait is almost on board with the fact that this planet or the star that we had talked about in past weeks that had dropping sunlight around it, they're slightly more. They're at like 0.001% convinced it might be aliens, as opposed to 0.000001. So when we talked about this planet that has possible quote unquote alien megastructures around it, people were saying no, it's probably just a cloud of comets. And they were going to do more math on it and analyze it and go back into past archives and see what was going on. And they've ruled out now. I just want to mention this in follow-up because they've ruled out comets. It would have to be like tens of thousands of giant comets that nobody's ever seen comets this big before in order to block this out. And it's actually this light that's coming from the star has decreased like 20% in several months. Like it's just not. It's too fast over too short a period to be anything that we can really conceive of at the moment.
What if it's a star killer base?
Ooh, well, actually, I did technically think about that, and actually, there's a story that is new in this week's show that is also possibly a star killer base. Basically, Star Wars could be all around us. It could be our actual universe right now, and not a long time ago. Far away, but yeah, they still don't know what this is, but it is not comets, and so
technically, if we're seeing it now, it would have been a long time ago.
I guess so.
So we're just seeing the movie of what happened already,
and it's coming out at the exact same time. And
we're seeing something from a long time ago in a galaxy far away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, and so, in theory, if we were seeing events due to gravitational lensing, we were seeing events from two different times from at the same location. We could, in fact, somehow possibly see events that happened 30 years earlier, later, in our actual time. So, in theory, the prequels could actually arrive. Like light from the prequels could actually arrive here after the original events of the original trilogy. But that's getting into way too deep physics for I think the scope of this show. But it's something to think about, anyways. We still don't know what's causing this amazing or really high dip of brightness in the star, but it is not comets, and so scientists want to rule everything out before they say it's aliens, or at least have some evidence of aliens themselves before saying it is. But we still have no idea what it is.
Yeah. And I'll go on the record again saying I think every scientist hopes it's aliens.
Oh yeah, but they need evidence.
They need evidence, but everyone hopes it is. Like don't get anyone wrong about that. I don't think anyone hopes it's not aliens.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Anyways, so that's it for our extremely long session of follow-up. Nick, you did the tiniest possible amount of research on CRISPR, and you wanted to talk a bit more about it this week.
Well, I wanted to talk with you guys about it specifically because
Yeah. Yeah.
that was the agreement that we made, that
Mhm.
everyone would read up on it a little more, and then we would talk about it.
That's true. So
I
is this
didn't.
conversation totally useless if we didn't do that?
Uh, maybe.
Okay.
Well, we didn't actually really talk about it the first time.
No, we didn't.
So there was a story from This American Life this past week under the title of Something Only I Can See. And it was really interesting. They had a person with muscular dystrophy on to tell her story, and it turned out she had these two just outrageously rare genetic diseases.
Hmm.
And one was something that caused, muscular dystrophy, and the other was one that it impaired the body's ability to store fat. But it was interesting because it was like to a point where it became dangerous for the individual. So I guess what happened was, she for a while they thought she had intern syndrome because she was researching this rare genetic disease that prevented you from getting fat.
Okay.
And she looked at her skinny arms with the veins popping out, and went, "Huh, wonder if I have that."
Hmm.
But a few years later, a relative of hers looked at this Olympic sprinter, and she had the same kind of really veiny arms and legs. And, people just assumed it was because she was an Olympian, like a very, very good athlete.
Right.
But, long story longer, and total spoilers. It turned out that they had the same genetic disease with regard to fat storage, to the point where they called up the athlete with results and said, "Hey, I have news for you. Can we talk?" And they're like, "It's not really a great time. I'm at the mall." He's like, "Oh, are you about to eat lunch? Because this is actually like life-changing advice."
Right.
But because they can't store fat in their body, it just goes through their veins.
Hmm.
And so if they eat particularly fatty foods, it all goes to the blood and could potentially cause a heart attack or something like that.
Wow.
Hmm.
Yeah. So they like literally said, no, if you're about to eat lunch, don't eat a burger because
Right.
it could kill you. But
Huh.
how this relates to CRISPR is they looked at the genome, or the specific sections of the genome to do with uh, muscle growth or something like that. And they found the defect in the one lady that led to muscular dystrophy. And it was just one letter off.
Hmm.
It was like, I think a C and G had gotten turned backwards, and that had impaired her body's ability to create muscle.
Hmm.
But in the athlete, there was a mutation that was just a few letters down that was a similar flip. But that allowed her to put on muscle like like it's going out of style.
Right.
And she's an Olympic sprinter.
Hmm.
So I think when I first talked about CRISPR, like one of the lead researchers on it had their son's friend had muscular dystrophy, and he was able to it was in a petri dish, granted, but he was able to introduce CRISPR, or introduce the CRISPR virus
Hmm.
somehow, use the CRISPR treatment, whatever the verbiage is,
Right. Yeah.
and it completely eliminated the muscular dystrophy causing defect in the petri dish. And so I think that's a way of saying like this is how powerful CRISPR could be, because it's one where you just give an exact sequence to it and it will snip it out. And apparently, from some reading I've just done, and we can put links in the notes,
Yeah.
um, apparently it's possible to either just patch that so that it's just nothing in the middle, or alternatively, you can introduce something else into that space you just created in terms of gene therapy.
Okay.
And so, like with one letter difference, you could either create someone that has just a horrible disease that involves wasting away, or you could just make Olympic athletes.
Right. And it's all
So
in this one important gene, this one sequence.
It's
So like
it's all in this one very specific part
right.
of your genome.
yeah.
Huh.
So I don't know anything about genetics pretty much. So excuse if this is a stupid question, but if you're using this method to replace and modify genes in fully grown people or organisms, I guess, how many different DNA strands do you have to do that same process to for it to actually make that change? Like, does the DNA self-replicate and just kind of spread once you make that one change, or how does that work?
I
Or
think
do
the
you know?
idea I think the idea with CRISPR is it hijacks, or it's part of a bacterium. It's part of E. coli, and so it ends up hijacking, I think, your immune system. So theoretically, like your body does most of the work.
Right.
That's my
So,
understanding too.
okay, so you make whatever change, and then just from that point on, that's the DNA that your body uses to generate cells.
Yeah.
So you're not necessarily changing all your existing cells or the necessary existing cells. You're making one change one place, and then from that point on, it takes care of itself. And you just wait for the changes to take effect, I guess.
Yes.
Well,
I
in
think
theory,
that's probably it.
you would treat the body. You could either give an injection or whatever delivery method. You'd get it into the
Right.
body, and then the virus would go around cells and do its thing, like make the change that it's designed to make, and then so it would make it to all the DNA in a cell in one whatever specific spot you want, and then it would go to other cells and do the same thing. Like it
Is that how that works? That's what I'm asking.
yeah. And so once the DNA is changed in a cell, when that cell splits, you have two copies of that new
Right. No.
DNA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
in theory, the old cells would die off and be recycled and then turned into new cells that have this new DNA. In
Hmm.
theory.
Yeah, it's what, like a 6-month cycle where your cells are totally replaced? Something like that?
It depends on where the virus can get in your body, because there's stuff like the blood-brain barrier that it may not you may have to like inject it directly into your brain if you wanted it to get in there, but all your different cells are on totally different scales. Like your stomach lining and your
Yeah.
inside of your mouth get changed like every couple days, but some other
Yeah.
cells last a lot longer.
Yeah. I saw an ASAP Science video on this
Yeah.
a while ago.
Yeah, there's no like firm time, but it just depends on when cells die, and if you have like some trauma that could speed things up or slow things down. Like it really depends.
Yeah.
The body's weird.
So that's what CRISPR could do.
Mm.
But that's just people.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just our entire species. It can work on other species too. So like the entirety of our food supply could be affected by this. Just everything.
Right.
And so that's why they very much said it on Quirks and Quarks that it was a good candidate for story of the year.
Right. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just has applications everywhere. I mean, if you can, it's like a copy paste for the body. Like you can just make any change you need to, as long as you know what you're doing. Then you can just. And obviously, this is going to need to stand up to rigorous scientific testing before it gets used on humans for any kind of treatment. But it seems like it's just the kind of thing where once you tailor this virus to do whatever you need it to do, it'll just go to town on it.
Yeah. Well, apparently I forget exactly the history, but it said the other thing is with it can be used as a viral treatment because like a virus will hijack your cells too and just
Yeah.
insert viral DNA into your cells so that it replicates the virus.
Yeah.
But CRISPR apparently can just say, "Oh, that bit. Yeah, we don't need that bit. Just get rid of it."
Huh. Interesting. Any more to say on CRISPR, or is that we should theoretically now do our homework and then revisit it at some point?
I desperately, because there's just so much we could potentially talk about.
Okay.
That's probably not going to happen. But
I will look into it, and
Mike, let me try and frame this better for you. What if this was somehow applicable to cell phones, Mike?
then I would definitely be reading it.
Okay, yeah. And we can definitely get you excited.
it kind of worked. um, yeah. So that's CRISPR, and I honestly am, because I'm very intrigued. I'm gonna go and look at it and try to figure it out. Albeit, admittedly, I don't have a big background in biology or genetics either, but I find the whole thing really interesting, and so I have picked some stuff up. Very interesting. So the next story we want to talk about here, I don't know how much you guys heard about this, but it was all over everything I look at on the internet. So researchers it was actually apparently the team of the guy who found the dwarf planet that was bigger than Pluto that caused them to reevaluate Pluto's status as a planet. So that's Mike Brown from Caltech. He and his team have located, or have not
Detected.
located.
They've predicted.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's a good word. They've predicted a new ninth planet, and apparently it's gigantic. It's somewhere between Earth and Neptune. They're saying smaller than Neptune, but quite a bit bigger than Earth. It's insanely far away. Its orbit is like 20,000 years, but it has been, or something out there has been disrupting the gravitational pull of objects in the area, and basically it's caused a bunch of comets or asteroids or other bodies out that we have observed to be way out of where the orbit we'd expect them to be in. And the only thing that would cause that, like they've done a bunch of math and orbital mechanics work and discovered that if there's something out there that's about this size and in about this location, that it would perfectly explain all of the other stuff we're seeing. And so basically this team has now said, this is about where we expect something to be. It's going to be very dark because it's going to be cold and it's going to be far away. It's not going to, it's not a star or anything, so it's not going to be giving off a lot of light. But if you could find this would be a huge discovery. Like, we haven't discovered something that big in our this would be in our solar system. It's very far away, but it would be still in our solar system. And we haven't discovered something that big or that big and important since Pluto, which was like the 1930s. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, I saw. Sorry, go ahead.
The way I found out about this was that someone said, "Oh, I get it. David Bowie passes away, and all of a sudden we've detected a ninth planet. Save your explanation, science."
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a schematic of what the orbit looks like,
Mm-hmm.
and it looks pretty much what you'd see.
Is it elliptical?
Yeah, it's a non-central. It's a non-central focal point of the orbit, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah.
So it's the
like
same
an
way,
ellipse?
like a comet, like the way that a comet, it kind of goes like. You'd have here. Let's try it. So you have like your central point here. So it goes like this, and then kind of comes close, and then swings way back far out like that.
An eccentric orbit, I think, is the word.
As if
Highly eccentric.
As if there was a focus to it.
That's why I said it's a
But,
non-central
there could be
focus.
two foci. And how do you describe something with two foci? What is it? Oh, it's an ellipse.
Nick, every orbit in our solar system is elliptical by some degree.
Nick,
this is just highly elliptical, Nicholas.
Yeah, highly elliptical. It's very eccentric, and I think is the word they use to describe a highly elliptical
Oh, okay.
I'm
Yeah, that's
trying
interesting.
to explain it visually for our viewers, Nick.
Trying to
But thank
explain
you.
it visually for our viewers,
And
but
it
what about
makes
the listeners?
fantastic podcasting, I gotta say.
Uh, so, I mean, there's not a ton to say about this yet because it hasn't been confirmed. And I should say, everything that I'm reading, there has been talk of a ninth planet for a really long time. Basically, since we discovered Pluto, people were saying, "Oh, there's a thing out there, and it could be another planet. Like there's something disturbing gravity." And we have not ever found anything outside of Pluto. Uh, but the fact that this is it's a well-respected group, they wouldn't be publishing these findings unless they thought there was a real like they wouldn't be publishing them and publicizing them in the way that they are unless there was a real chance and they actually wanted like they're encouraging people astronomers to go out and search for it with whatever big telescopes
Yeah.
they can get their hands on. So I'm really intrigued by the possibility, and there's a couple videos. I have a link here from the Huffington Post Science wing showing the orbits and showing all the other comets and asteroids and stuff, all the larger bodies that have been disrupted by it. I don't know a ton about orbital mechanics, but I trust the guys that have been discovering these things for a long time.
Yeah. I saw NASA release a statement on this because they
Of course.
probably should.
Yeah.
And I guess Vox picked up the story and they turned it into NASA downplaying the
Yeah,
prediction.
I heard that too.
And I was like, and I read it, I'm like, they literally used the words, NASA said it was just a theory. They literally said just a theory. And I'm like, no, there's no way they said it's just a theory. So I watched the whole video and they picked the word theorist. Like I think NASA's director was like, oh, these types of theories are important for science because blah 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 blah.
Right.
And then Vox said, oh, they said it's just a theory. And I'm like,
This is Vox, the science wing of Vox. Yeah.
well, I don't even know if it's a science wing. It was whoever was in charge of writing that stupid
Right.
article called
Yeah.
it, said it's just a theory. And I'm like, oh my god, guys. Like, well, we should link to the NASA video because it's actually very good. It was a very positive video saying, it's good to be excited about this. This is a very, important step in the scientific process, but there's a healthy discussion and debate going on as far as what could be causing these gravitational effects. And this one model does fit that explanation. Like it gives a valid explanation for this, but there's still discussion as far as how likely it is that this model is actually explaining what's going on.
Yeah.
Because you can, in a way, you can make a model fit anything, depending, like, that's just how models work. If you tweak the numbers enough, you can kind of get it to explain whatever you want almost. That's the same way climate models work, is there's so many variables that you can tweak them all to kind of fit whatever model you want. But it's just how valid and how likely that model is to explain it. So one example of why there's doubt about this model is that because the planet has such a wide orbit in the formation of the solar system, why hadn't it been kicked out of the solar system altogether? Like, how was it
Right.
able to still maintain, like, if it was formed in the solar system and then bumped out, but still able to kind of swing back and form that orbit? That's highly unlikely. That's kind of what they're saying. So it's like, let's try to figure out all the different aspects of this and see if it's a valid explanation. And then obviously they want to visually detect it.
Yeah.
So that's, like you were saying, they're going to use like the giant telescopes that actually can gather enough light to see the planet if it's there.
Right.
So they have a predicted region that is going to end up at whatever point in time that they're going to start focusing their telescopes on to see if they can actually visually detect it.
Yeah.
Versus just explaining the gravitational effects by this model.
Sure.
So what I'm hearing is that we're taking on Vox.
Absolutely.
Oh, they've been taken on lots of times before. Don't worry.
Okay. But maybe it's Future Chat and the Unwind Media Empire that can finally drive a stake through its black heart.
I hope so. You can
Okay.
only,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's the goal anyway.
Solid.
Yeah.
Maybe they need more science writers. Maybe they need a podcast.
I think they do.
I think they do as well. Yeah. So again, this is one of those things where it's happened, or they've done the research, they published the paper, and now we just have to wait until they find a planet. I think just based on the fact that we've theorized for a while, like we being the collective we of astronomers have theorized for a while
Are
that
you a part of that?
I was going to
totally, I
say,
love
of course, of which you are a part, Rob.
I'm a scientist because I say I'm a scientist. I'm an
You're just
astronomer
an
because
astronomer.
I used a telescope.
Okay, gotcha.
Anyways,
Glad we got that cleared up.
yeah, exactly. So I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
Okay, so if we every time we look out in space and we say, oh, there's a thing, there ends up being billions of those things. And originally, like 20 or 30 years ago, a lot of people were saying, oh, like our solar system's unique in the universe. Now we're finding like there's an average of something like 10 or 15 different planets orbiting every star in the universe. And like once we find something like this, once we found one dwarf planet that wasn't Pluto, we started finding like a whole bunch of them. And I feel like once we find like these things are out of our visual scope, like we can't just look out and see this planet that's light days away. We can't see them directly, but it doesn't mean they're not out there. I'm sure there are a bunch of planets like that. There could be, like, if you just go out into interstellar space, there are probably rogue planets just flying all over the place. There's matter everywhere. You're not gonna, like, if a rocky planet gets just ejected from its solar system in the early formation or whatever, when everything is all over the place, even our solar system, if it gets flung out into interstellar space, the odds that it's going to ever meet up with another star are tiny. Like it'll just be flying all over the place. Especially if it's going fast enough, it'll just never encounter anything that has gravity enough to trap it. And so it wouldn't surprise me at all that there's not just one planet 9, but there's a whole bunch of planets that we just haven't observed yet, because they're either too small, even if they're around Earth size, they're too small to observe, and we're just never going to see them. I feel like planets are everywhere. It's just a matter of time before we start finding them, as our instruments get more and more sensitive, as we get better at finding them. Anyways.
I agree.
Yeah. It's not like hard to disagree with that.
Yes.
It's so wishy-washy, but. So Mike, you wanted to talk this week about our good friends at Numberphile and some of the work that they did talking to researchers about a new discovery.
I want to talk about the fact that this discovery was made at all, because this is as big news as the new planet, really.
Yeah, I mean, very different kinds of news. I don't know if you can compare them. What happened?
So we discovered and actually found, this isn't just a prediction.
You used the royal we as well there.
we as humanity, the mathematicians as a part of our humanity,
yeah, okay,
have discovered a new largest known prime number. Obviously, it's not the largest because there's an infinite amount of numbers, so the largest one is out there even bigger than this. But we've actually found this one, and it is, I believe, 200. Hold on, I don't even have the stats in front of me here. Let me just.
I was going to say, if what you've told me earlier is to be any judge, then I think the next prime number will be 2 to the power of 74,207,282 minus 1.
You'd think so. That's not true.
Oh.
So this was a Mersenne prime that was found, and they are of the form 2 to the power of some prime number minus 1.
Mm-hmm.
Because 2 to the power. 2 to the power of that prime number, or 2 to the power of a prime number is even, which obviously isn't prime.
Okay.
But if you subtract 1 off it, then it's odd, and in that case it could be prime. And Mersenne primes are ones that actually are prime.
Yes.
And the power to the 2 is supposed to be prime as well. That's not the only primes that there are, but that's a specific type,
that's
a special type of prime.
Easy to find.
It's the way of
a lot of time.
It takes a lot of time still, but they're easier ones to find because they're of that specific form.
Yeah.
And the checking process, I guess, there's various ways that are computer mechanically efficient to find. You don't have to just check every single divisor ever to find if it's prime or not. So the number itself is 2 to the power of 74,207,281 minus 1.
Right.
And so we'll post a link that the Mercen.org, they have an article on it that gives a bunch of different stats on the number itself. We won't go to great detail there, but I thought it was interesting just the fact that this project called the GIMPS project, so it's the Great International Mersenne Prime Search.
Okay.
This is going on, and you can actually dedicate your computer to crunching numbers for this project to help in finding it. And if your computer was the one that found the number, then you get credited with the discovery,
Right.
which is pretty cool. But the guy that found it, Dr. Cooper, I don't have his first name offhand.
Sheldon.
Shit.
No.
It's not Sheldon. He works at a university, and he actually has 800 computers working to find these primes. So he's actually found four of these primes already.
Yeah.
And it was actually found on September 17th, but
Found by the computer.
Found by the computer,
Yeah.
but the computer didn't notify anyone that it had found it. So it wasn't until someone was doing some data checks back in January, like this month, that they're like, wait, this looks like it was a prime. So then they rechecked it 2 more times on 2 different programs and confirmed that it was in fact prime. So the checking of it initially took 31 days to do the calculation, the number crunching, and then the checks took, I think, 2 to 3 days each to do. And yeah, like there's a good number file video that explains how these numbers are checked, like the Mersenne primes. And there's an interview there from Matt Parker as well that with the Discover. So it's cool, like that you can do this, and there really is no point to finding these primes. It's just why not? Like, once you get this big, prime numbers obviously play a big factor in cryptography and that kind of thing. But as far as just finding bigger ones, it's just because you can. I think that's kind of the thing, the search for knowledge. And yeah, I think it's 200 million digits. That sounds like
a lot of digits.
It's a lot of digits. Yeah, they actually printed out the number.
Yeah.
And it's in like 3 volumes. It's like 1,200 pages of like 1-point font numbers.
It's like a waste of paper.
It was nicely. It was nicely bound, and it was nice.
Recycled paper.
Yeah, it was recycled paper. That's true.
Well, as long as it looks nice.
No, as in like it wasn't like print and throw it out. It's like you'd keep it.
Yeah.
So.
Why?
Why not?
It's a record of the discovery.
It's the number itself.
So as a guy who, like, I prefer hard copy books to digital books. I like reading them better. I like the ability to pass off physical books to friends or receive physical books yourself. But this is one instance where I'm like, oh my god, just use the digital copy.
The digital copy is so much less important than a paper copy is, I would say. Like, what's the purpose in having that unless you're going to print it out? Like, I'm a person who loves... Again, this is very CGP Grey-like. I would not want it in my house, but the fact that it exists printed, I think is cool. I have no use for it, but the record of it, I think, is interesting. Like, if you have a digital copy, basically, if you have a PDF of this, you can just scroll through and look at pages of numbers. It has no context. It has no meaning. But if you have it printed in a 3-volume set, I think it's really cool.
What if they had said, hypothetically, if you printed this out, it would be a 3-volume set? Would that have impressed you more or less?
It doesn't impress me. I'm not impressed that they printed it. I just think it's interesting. Like, I think it's a better record printed out than it is in a PDF.
I'm impressed they printed it.
Why don't they? You know what? Why don't they carve it in stone? That way, this prime number will be there for millennia, for generations to see.
Mm-hmm.
I'd argue that's less permanent. Erosion is a B, so anyway.
Yeah, and paper always lasts forever, so that's good. It's fireproof, it's waterproof, it's all the proofs.
Yeah. What if we encoded it into DNA? That would be pretty cool.
What if we took this prime number and stored it on a cell phone app? Would that be like of the utmost excitement?
That'd be a giant app.
Yeah.
If each number, like, how many bytes would that be? 200 million digits?
It's a lot.
In binary?
Well, it'd be hexadecimal. You'd have to do
I guess
ASCII.
hex. Yeah.
Well, if each character is a byte,
Right. Yeah, I
or
guess it
no,
would be ASCII. You would have to
no, because
encode
you
it in
you would
binary.
encode it as like
It
in
would
the
have to be
binary
ASCII.
bytes, so you can go up to 256. So I'm sure there's a way to compress that
255.
somehow.
Yeah, they're eight bits is one character. Someone do the math and find it. Be a
So
giant number, but
200 million digits times 8.
Wait,
Yeah.
200 million. If it's
1.6
just
trillion digits.
no, but a byte
Six-
is the character.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
if it's 200 million, then it's
it's just it would just be in bytes. It'd be 200 million bytes.
But let's do some follow-up next week on this.
Sure,
kilobytes,
How big this app is going to
megabytes,
be.
Mike, you're in charge of this.
gigabytes.
I think it would be
No,
gigabytes.
billion
I
is
think
giga.
that's right.
Okay.
Do we say billion or million?
Million.
Oh, so it's only 200 megabytes.
Maybe. A 200
So
megabyte
you could
text
fit that on
file.
a floppy, and I was like, no, not quite a floppy, but a USB stick.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's that.
So it's like, guys, there is something that could change life on Earth as we know it. Treat every known genetic disease. It's fine.
But
Guys,
this number,
there's a new prime number. What? Whoa, this is amazing.
And you're
It's
telling me they
amazing.
printed it?
They printed it on paper, and it took 3 books.
This is the best. This is the best day.
I did the prime number, right? It's so
Yeah.
exciting.
Oh, for sure.
What a time to be alive.
Okay, just put this into perspective, okay? You have this number that takes 3 books, 1,200 pages.
And it's only
And-
divisible by 1 and itself.
Exactly! How is that not amazing?
It's so big a number. How does it not have more divisors?
I know! This is real excitement.
It is very interesting. I will say that. Like, I love prime numbers, especially when they get that huge. Like, mathematically they have to exist, but it's really cool.
Like, you're never going to find the last prime number. So it's like, isn't that
There's
amazing?
an infinite number of primes.
I
Yeah.
know. That's what I mean. You guys suck. Okay, let's move on.
I'm teasing you, but I genuinely think this is really
I know.
cool.
Nick doesn't.
I think it's really cool. I'm impressed by your enthusiasm is all.
Yeah. Which makes sense.
Although you did say it was a distributed thing, and as you were talking about it, I was like, this seems like one of those things where if you just had a screensaver that did this, that would be a great idea.
Well, that's basically what it was. He petitioned the university to let him use the idle time of the computers on campus.
Oh, guys, I have real-time update.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
I laughed so hard at Mike's story that I woke Kai up.
Is she giving you the stink eye right now?
She's pointing and glaring.
What's she pointing at?
Me.
Oh, okay.
In a look that says Jacques. The worst, because that's the entirety of my writing staff right there.
Yeah.
Just pissed off my entire writing staff, Mike. Thanks.
I mean, it's kind of your on that one. So, Mike,
Anyway, yes.
you had some car news that you wanted to talk about that we did not
did.
get to last week.
Yes, and there's actually follow-up this week, so it's good we didn't
Yeah.
talk about it last week.
Perfect.
So there's a you guys have heard of Android Auto and
CarPlay.
Apple CarPlay. I was gonna say Apple CarPlay. Apple Car is something different. So CarPlay and Android Auto, they're both I guess not heads-up displays. Is that what you call them?
Dashboard displays.
Dashboard displays, and they integrate with your phone with apps, and if a call comes in, it will tell you who calls and all that kind of stuff. And like BMW, Audi, those types of higher end cars, they have similar type of dashboard displays as well that you can hook your phone up to, and you can make calls from it and that kind of thing, and control the radio and that, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
So Ford and Toyota, I guess, are trying to push the industry to adopt a standard for coding and integrating apps into their dashboard displays, and they're calling it Smart Device Link.
Okay.
And the idea is that by adopting a standard, it allows automakers to have consistency, obviously, as far as having your phone tell the car, start my engine, start it up, or set the alarm, or unlock the doors, or whatever. Because right now, most dashboard displays don't actually have access to the car functionality. Like, they'll have access to the audio and that kind of thing. But as far as actually the, starting the car and that kind of stuff, it's all computerized already, but the dashboard display isn't able to call functions for that system. But what they're hoping is that they'll start being able to do that, because Tesla has that type of functionality built into their cars, I believe. Being able to do various stuff from your phone or through the dashboard display to actually do stuff with the car.
Yeah, they do.
So by adopting the standard, then you allow app developers to develop apps for that and all that kind of stuff, and then you don't have to develop okay, this works with Fords, this works with Toyotas, this works with this specific model of Ford, all that kind of stuff. And then this past week, I came across an article that Ford has this system called Ford Pass.
Okay.
And it's essentially their version of the dashboard display and app, like smartphone app integration. And it works just that same way. You'd be able to call stuff for your car from your phone. And there's various other kind of gimmicky type stuff with the app. Like there's Ford Pay, where you can, I don't know if it's hooking up a credit card to it or you just link it with Ford directly and they invoice you or whatever. But you can pay for parking through this app. You can, I don't know what else. I don't think you'd be paying for Starbucks or anything with it, but
right.
You can do various purchases through this app, I guess.
Wouldn't
and there's
that be a great drive-through though.
Yeah.
Just scan my dash.
And you're already billed.
They're doing this, but I think the bigger story is just the fact that they're coming up with a standard, and that's not Android or Apple. They're trying to come up with their own standard, which is kind of confusing to me. It's like, why not just pick one or the other, I guess? Like, it's either Android Auto or CarPlay, but I guess if they want to come up with their own, at least make it a standard. I think that's probably a good idea. And I'm sure you'd be able to get apps that work with the smart device link for Android or Apple, ideally, that you shouldn't need, another device to control it. So at that point, I guess you're removing the walled garden of Apple or Android, that you can kind of open it up to both by having your third system that works with both. But I think you're just going to start seeing more of this with a lot of these types of things. Like, you're going to automate everything. Like, your fridge is going to have, integration with your phone, your dishwasher, whatever.
Right.
I think they're all going to have something at some point, if you want to.
So I've posted the relevant XKCD in the notes.
Did you put it in the right place again?
No.
He did.
Almost certainly not.
He put it in the actual right place, not the wrong right place. Yeah.
Oh, and then I copied it and pasted it, and it didn't go well. Anyway.
Yeah.
I'll just let you check that.
Yeah.
There are
but see,
current situation. There are two competing standards. And then they go, "This is ridiculous. We need a standard that will cover everyone's use cases." Yeah. Soon, there are three competing standards.
Yeah. Hopefully, this doesn't turn into that. We can only hope.
We can't hope.
Because the entirety of humanity thus far has been, universal cohesion.
Yeah. Even USBs now are not as universal as they should be.
Yeah, not at all.
Which is sad, given the U.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mike, I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
This Ford Pay link is from a site called nfcworld.com or nfcworld.net?
Yeah, that's just the one I came across. I don't know how.
Is that in your RSS feeds or what?
That was a link that Twitter, I came across a guy on Twitter posted it. And because he was talking about Ford Pay, and it was a very clickbaity title because it said Ford enters the mobile payments market. I'm like, what? Why would they do that?
Yeah.
And then I read it, I'm like, that's not what it is at all. But kind of missed the bigger picture of the story there. But
I mean, a car is mobile, technically.
That's not what it means. But
it's good because we've never reached for a connection ever.
No, never.
Especially me. I'm guiltless in all of this.
Yeah, it is very interesting. Ford, I think, has gone further than any car manufacturer has in trying to connect the car, and so it doesn't surprise me at all that they're doing this. But I don't think it's going to take over any. I don't think any other car manufacturers are likely to kind of incorporate this framework into their cars. I think they're either going to come up with something for themselves or adopt, like they already are adopting either Android Auto or CarPlay.
Yeah, and I think I would want some sort of dashboard display that links with my phone, whether it's Android Auto, CarPlay, or something else. But I would want something because it sucks. Like, for one, it's not safe to try to control your phone while you're driving. Like, even if it's just for navigation, like, you don't want to have to be fiddling with this small screen. If it's dashboard display, it's easier to kind of,
Yeah.
alternate route or whatever. And music and all that kind of stuff. If you're having to go through your phone to control changing songs, that kind of stuff, it's not practical. So
Right.
I think a dashboard display is good, and if it can integrate with your phone, then that's all the better.
Yep. Was there more on the car,
No,
or
that's
was that
pretty
it?
much everything, I think.
Okay. I always feel bad about the car stuff because I drive a car more now than I ever have, like, in the last year or so, but I still, like, I know very little about actual car technology, and, like, I've never owned a car or rented a car or anything. Like, it's when I say rented, I mean, like, I've been in a rental car, I've just never actually done it. So, like, I know nothing about the mechanics of
Right.
car dashboards. If I was ever going to buy one, it would have to be a Tesla or something, because having what I'm going to call a dumb car it would annoy me so much knowing that better exists out there.
Yeah. Even for me, like, we don't even have Bluetooth in our stereo system.
Right.
And I'm like, Bluetooth? Like, all cars
What
have
are we even
Bluetooth.
doing?
Yeah, what are we even doing? That's like, I actually think that to myself.
I don't know. I've had mixed reviews of Bluetooth compatible vehicles.
Yeah. Some do it
Like-
right, some do it less right.
Like the Hyundai, we rented a Hyundai Veloster this past weekend because
That sounds like a
Kai
real
is-
car.
sorry.
That sounds like a real car.
It sounds made up. Yeah. Very made up.
Yeah, I'm just making up cars now. But Kai actually planned a day in Banff for us, which was absolutely fantastic. But the Veloster did a great job of Bluetooth integration,
Mhm.
as opposed to like the Fiat 500, which is just like, it looks like a fun car. It has such potential, but the inside of it is just awful,
Huh.
just terrible. Like the Bluetooth will do phone calls for you, but it won't pick up your phone's audio, like for podcasting or music or anything,
Right.
which is aggravating because like it accepts you doing phone calls and doing that hands-free, so you know the technology is there, you know the ability is there. It just won't let you, and I find that the most infuriating thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder if that's the kind of thing where if you took it to a dealer, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, there's a software update for this, and it would enable, like, it updates the firmware to enable this." And you just don't do that very often.
Right.
But yeah, who knows? Julia's
Mm,
car is
yeah.
the same way. You can do phone calls but not play music through Bluetooth.
I feel like that's inexcusable, is what I feel like.
It does. It feels very inexcusable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the story I have here, the next space story, because literally every story that I put in this week is about space. This is something that I first saw last week, but we didn't get a chance to talk about, and I just thought it was really, like, I love space. I don't know if I mentioned, but I'm an astronomer. And so we discovered, or we discovered, we looked into.
We've established that we is okay.
Yes, exactly. We looked very far out into space, and we saw basically the brightest thing that we had ever seen before. And whether they're not actually sure what it is exactly, but whether it's a black hole gobbling up a giant star, whether it's like a neutron star that's huge and pulsating, there's a thing called a magnetar. If you haven't watched Crash Course Astronomy, I really suggest watching that. It's a series on YouTube by Phil Plait. And he talks a little bit about magnetars, and he talks about big black holes and that kind of thing. And so in essence, it's a supernova, so it's a star exploding, but they don't actually know, like, it shouldn't be as bright as it is if that's all that's happening, because it's super far away. And so basically, they say it's billions of light years away. It's it's something like 200 times brighter than in any galaxy we've ever seen. And right now it's yeah, so they're saying right now it's 20 times brighter than the Milky Way galaxy put together, which has billions of stars, like something like quadrillions of stars in it.
Hmm.
It's so powerful, it's so bright, and we just have no idea what could ever do this. But like it's rewriting the laws of physics at that scale that we know of.
No, wait. What if that star that's too dim?
What
What
do you
if the
mean?
star killer is eating that star
Oh,
and this brightest thing we've ever seen? Maybe that was Star Killer just, wiping that thing out with the star that's dimming.
right. I did not think of that,
How could
but
we tie aliens into this, Rob? Is this aliens? It's not a Dyson sphere because it's brighter. It's not dimmer.
yeah, I like where your head's at. I don't think it's aliens. Um,
Are you sure?
I'm not sure.
You're
I don't
positive
think
it's
it's
not
aliens
aliens?
because it's so big and bright and far away. Like this is yeah, because it's so far away. It happened so long ago that I don't think aliens would have had time to be as advanced as they would need to be by then. You know what I mean? Like this is happening billions of years ago.
Yeah, and life has almost certainly only ever existed here at
Well,
this
That's
the
current time.
universe though is what
Infinite?
four and a, wait, no, we know
who's
how
saying the universe is infinite?
old the universe is.
Oh, wait, no, I was thinking physical space. How long ago was this?
This one, I think this is the one. It was like 4 billion light years away.
Totally doable.
It's possible, but it's a
Yeah.
lot less likely. Like as time goes on, we're much more likely,
Well, they had 10 billion years to advance, so
I
Yeah.
guess.
we
It's
only
I'm not
had
saying it's
In
impossible. I'm
the
saying it's less
infinite
likely.
universe, the infinite scope of the universe.
we've advanced as far as we have in like 600 million years.
Well, no,
Not even.
it took basically all 4 billion years. Like unicellular life progressed
Okay,
very quickly
fine.
after the formation of
4
Earth.
billion years, fine. They've had twice as long as we have.
It, I, okay, so the difference is 4 billion years ago, the conditions would have had to be different. Like we only exist now because we're not a first generation. We're not even a second generation. I don't think we're like a later generation. We're around a later generation star and planet. You need to have like the earliest stars only had hydrogen and helium. And then later stars were able to incorporate larger elements and make even bigger ones. Like the only reason we have things like iron and I mean obviously uranium, like bigger elements, is because we're recycled star material. We're not early stars. And so 4 billion years ago, it's less likely that a star would have managed to gather those kinds of heavy elements around it when it's creating whatever solar system is powering it. That's what I mean when I say it's less likely. I don't mean it's impossible. I mean you have to go through several cycles of like star formation, star death, explosion possible. The supernova is what actually creates the heavier elements, and so it takes a lot of time to actually do that. But anyways, that's beyond the point. It's really cool. I mean, it's actually insanely hot, but it's really cool from our distance to be able to see this insanely bright thing from super far away and just parallel like wonder at something that we've never seen anything like this before. We've seen supernovas, but they're like tiny in comparison to this massive explosion. Just I love astronomy.
So it's the brightest supernova, not necessarily the brightest object, or is it
No,
the
it's the
brightest?
brightest object by far that we've ever seen.
Okay.
I mean, it's not like the object itself isn't bright. It's bright right now, and it's like it in the last couple months it got really really bright, and now it's starting to dim again. Like the explosion's starting to fade away, but it seems, and again, we don't really know because we don't know what kind of timescales these things happen on, but it seems like this is like a very, very rare event for something to be so big. But it's possible that every 100 or 200 or 500 or 1,000 years we see something like this, but we just don't know. Like it's outside of our scope of understanding so far because it's so rare to us.
So the quote was, "This is not precisely the largest supernova, but the most luminous yet seen."
Yeah, the brightest one.
So supernova, it doesn't say the brightest object. It almost also be the brightest object, but it doesn't seem to be saying the brightest object.
Supernovae tend to be like the brightest things.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's not that, but it doesn't explicitly say here. Maybe it's an implied thing.
Yeah, like I say, go and watch Crash Course Astronomy.
Yeah, words.
Because he goes and talks about black holes, he goes and talks about magnetars, neutron stars, all this stuff that is probably what's behind this. It would take something rotating really quickly to add a bunch of energy to it. It would take probably a very dense, something like a neutron star. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that contribute to it, but at this point, all we can do is keep observing it and see what kind of information we can get out of it. Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, go look at that. There's links to all the stuff. You guys have anything else you want to say? Anything you could add to an after show?
Yeah, I just have a quick note. Doesn't have to be an after show.
Okay, what do you got?
Gonna have a teaser for CRISPR. Go to This American Life, their website. A link for Something Only I Can See, episode number 577.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the pictures of the two women there, and know that CRISPR could be the difference.
Okay. Should we do this now, or should we?
You can do it right now. Like, I
Instructing
highly
listeners to do
recommend it. I'll wait.
You'll wait.
Yeah.
Now you have to entertain the listeners.
The athlete was, she's, the subject of a genetic mutation and has been accused of doping or steroid use. Sorry, not doping, steroid use for her entire career.
Wow.
And the other has muscular dystrophy. And those are just two switches, two letters in the entire genome.
Yeah. I mean, they don't actually know. They haven't. Did they sequence all of both their genomes, and they're very, very similar in other ways too?
They have the same genetic disease.
Right.
But like the specific part that deals with muscle or something like that.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah. That's one letter.
Right. Crazy.
I think that just goes to show that people are so different, just baked into their code. Like, even just going as simply as, weight loss, right? People will try to lose weight or build muscle, but sometimes they're just coded to be a certain way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah. Well, like that's evolution incarnate right there. Like muscular dystrophy, that's a mutation that probably doesn't work as well.
Right.
But the other one, evolutionarily it might be unfavorable because you require so much more food to maintain something like that. But
yeah.
Right. Sure.
It's interesting. Profound.
Absolutely. All right. In that case, thanks for listening to this week's Future Chat. We'll be back. Actually, programming note, we will not be back next week. What we're going to do is take a few weeks off, little hiatus. We have a bunch of stuff going on in the next few weeks, and so we'll be back probably later in February with more Science and Tech Talk, and you can find past episodes of the show and plenty more at unwindmedia.com/futurechat, and we'll see you next time.
Toodaloo.
Ciao.
All right, you guys have any after-show business?
Nope.
I think we're actually pretty good.
Yeah.
What's the next big tech conference coming up? I don't think there isn't too much till.
World Congress, I think.
Oh, is it?
Maybe IFA, is that a different thing?
That's fallish.
Fall? Okay.
We just had IFA, I think. Pretty sure.
Yeah, there's supposed to be possibly a March Apple event. That's it.
Cell
Get over
phones.
this cold.
Neat.
Can I just say how, Rob, you know how we were talking about how webcams haven't really
Yeah,
increased in technology?
they're terrible.
Security cameras are exactly the same way. Base model security cameras are still 0.3 megapixel VGA resolution. Not even joking.
Well, the goal of that is to get something,
Right.
because storing HD video for 24 hours a day is
Right.
insanely expensive.
But even like motion detection, when it turns on only motion detection,
Well, I agree with you.
and then your what they call 720p is 1 megapixel,
Yeah.
7 HD resolution, like 16, 19 or whatever, and then 1080 is 3 megapixel.
Yeah.
So, but they're taking advantage of the 720p connotation. Like, wow, that's HD, wow, but it's only like 1 megapixel. It's like,
Right, but yeah, because video takes less bandwidth than, like, you're not trying to store this massive image. It doesn't take many
Right.
megapixels to do 1080. It's the fact that it's 24 frames a second that's the hard part. When I go and look, like, in my Google Photos at videos, even my, like, the iPhone is like 0.7 megapixels on the front camera
What?
for video. Like, it's not very,
Oh, for video.
yeah,
Is that what
it's
it
not
is? That
hard to do.
oh,
It's weird, but
is
yeah.
it because it's video and not still images? That makes that much of a difference?
It's just the fact that you only need 1080. Like, if you only needed 1080, if you only took 1080 by 1920 photos, they wouldn't be very big either. Like, 8 megapixels gets you like 3000 by 4000.
Right. Right.
It's weird.
It's just weird.
It's quite weird.
Anyway,
All right, well,
that's all I have.
that's all I have as well.
Oh, how did my internet do this week?
I thought it was
It's
good.
actually pretty good. Yeah, I didn't notice it at all.
Oh,
Anything wrong
good,
with it.
good.
Mhm.
I only noticed my audio feed didn't really break, but my video feed slowed down if I was opening new tabs or loading a website at the same time.
Hmm.
But
So you're only getting still the 10 down, even though you should be getting 30.
You said it
no,
was
I'm
at
getting like
17.
25. I checked, and during the video feed, speed test gave me 25,
Yeah.
Okay.
which
good.
is, yeah, it's like actually what we're
Yeah.
paying for. So
Yeah.
that's preferable.
No kidding.
Cool.
Yeah. All right.
I'm going to stop the
Good.
broadcast.
Toodaloo.